Roll call, please.
Susan Walke.
Here.
Kip Ward.
Here.
Judy Casper.
Here.
Deanna Hinton.
Here.
Riley Hoagland. Dick Anderson.
Here.
And Don Williams.
Here.
Okay, next item on the agenda is comments from citizens present. Has anybody signed up to speak? Okay, thank you. And next item on the agenda is public hearings, public comment. Our public hearing is on the competitive bidding exemption. Ms. Robertson, did you have a presentation? Okay, all right. I will open the public hearing. It's now 5:04 p.m. This hearing on competitive bid exemption is open. Are there any counselors who wish to declare a conflict of, or ex parte communication? Hearing none, any counselors who wish to declare a conflict of interest? None? Thank you. Let's see. This is an exemption to the competitive bidding process proposed for the agency's D-Lake utility undergrounding project. Exemptions are allowed under ORS 279C.335, providing the agency seeking an exemption follow the required procedures, including prepared findings or justification for the exemption. Okay, I don't hear, do I see any public comments? Yes, Mr. Baird?
I'm Mr. Baird. I'll make this real short. I think that this undergrounding of the utilities at D-Lake is a very low priority for us to spend $2.2 million on. We have other projects in the city that have to do with public safety, public well-being. I don't see why we're spending this much money on putting some telephone wires underground. That's it.
Great. Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Anyone else who wishes to speak about this? All right, do I hear a motion to close the hearing?
Move to close the public hearing and the record.
Second.
Motion and a second to close the public hearing and the record. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. All right, discussion? This is about the competitive bidding process, not about the project.
Madam Chair, this is the same process that we have requested in the last two undergrounding projects because of the nature of undergrounding and the experience that we had when we had inexperienced contractors working on it, that we're requesting that we begin by putting out the bid for qualified contractors, and then we negotiate with them from that point rather than just going with the traditional low bid process.
Thank you, Mr. Chadwick. Any other comments from agency members? Do I hear a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll move to approve the competitive bid exemption based on the findings that are in our attached packet and authorize staff to utilize the RFP process.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to exempt the D-Lake undergrounding project from the competitive bidding exemption pursuant to the findings in our packet. All those, roll call, please.
Walke.
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Williams,
I'm going to say no.
Anderson,
Yes.
Hinton,
Yes.
and Casper.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next item on the agenda is the grant request, local program support from the Small Business Development Center. Ms. Robertson, thank you.
Hello. This is a request for our local program support grant, which is one of our economic development tools that we've had available since about 2012. It's a request from the Small Business Development Center to do a couple of different programs. The first program is the Small Business Management Program Scholarship Fund, and the request for this project is about $13,500, which would provide 15 businesses per term with scholarship for one-year program for in-depth business instruction and one-on-one monthly counseling. Students would be asked to pay about $50 facilities fees per term. And then the second project is a request for $6,500, which would offer scholarships to businesses for one class per academic term. And these programs are required to be available for urban renewal located businesses and employees. And let's see, this is the 5th year that the Small Business Development Center has applied for this program, and every year that they apply, you all have decided to grant their request, and they have underspent their request. They work hard to get the message out and use all of the funds. And in this case, their request is for $13,500 for project number 1, Small Business Management Program, and then $6,500 for project number 2. Later on the agenda, I think it's actually next on the agenda, we're asking for your consideration to change the program requirement. When we create a program, we don't always know. There are 2 ways that we create a program for economic development. One is we know what the demand is, and we're creating the program to meet that. And the other way is the agency decides they want to achieve some objective, and they create the program, and then we have to see what the demand is. In this case, we created this program, again, in 2012, and now that we've had a few years of it, we're able to see that there might be a modification needed to better serve the urban renewal district. And so the language change that would follow this grant request would basically allow not to exceed the $25,000 to an organization, but allow that organization to decide if they have a program request for more than $10,000. So right now, the way the program is written, it's $10,000 per program, not to exceed $25,000 per organization. And the grant request coming this time before you exceeds that program cap, but not the cap per the organization, if that makes any sense. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Dave Price is here and available as well to answer any questions. So,
I would like for Dave to get up and
Okay.
give us his pitch.
I have a question of Allison first.
Yes.
We said that this is $10,000 per program, but it appears the previous 4 years we've granted more than $10,000.
It's been more than $10,000 to the organization in total, but it has not exceeded $10,000 per.
Okay. So the figures we have in our memo are more than one project.
They are per organization.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Madam Chair, the other question I would have, do we have our cart before the horse here? If we were approving this request, and, that would be ahead of language change to the program policy. I'm just wondering if we should be changing the policy first.
Yeah, it's hard to talk about one without the other. In this case, you could allow for an exemption to the program for this request, and then you could, it's similar to what we did with the facade improvement loan earlier this year. We had a request to do a little bit different of a loan request as a line of credit rather than a construction type loan, and so we did the same process as this time.
So in the motion then should be that recognize that this would be an exception, allow for an exception to the program. Okay. And then we'll cover
For the next step
item.
with whatever you decide you want
Either
to do.
that, or we could skip to the next agenda item and go back after we hear.
Yes, it's completely up to you.
Madam Chair, I have a question. So the 4 years that you provided in the staff report, and all the requests were for more than what they actually spent. And so I'm just curious about how that fits with this year's request, which is a higher amount than what has been spent in the past. I mean, what's the
Can you
difference?
explain that to us?
I'd be happy to try, Councilor Hinton. My name is Dave Price, the Director of Small Business Development and Community Ed at the Oregon Coast Community College. And you are correct. And this came up, I believe it was a question from Councilor Anderson the last time I spoke to you about this. And today I did not bring a presentation. I put you through one in July, and I just wanted to field any questions. So I don't have a show, as Councilor Ward asked, but I will do my best to answer the question. So the question / criticism of we're going to this trouble to allow these funds to be spent for economic development, and I'm not spending them, is I think a fair one, but it's something that we wrestle with every year. And part of it's timing and little just orchestration issues on our end. For example, I'm before you in August, late August, asking for approval on this grant, knowing full well that it could not happen. I realize we have other projects, we have undergrounding, we have other things that are happening. That said, if we were fortunate enough to be funded, then I've got about 3 weeks to spread the word to folks who know that it's a possibility but not a guarantee. And so we face that every year. But that only affects the big ticket item, if you will, which is our year-long small business management program that Allison sketched out for you. The year-long academic program that involves monthly classes and counseling sessions. And as I've told you before many times, this is the program that first introduced me as a business owner in Lincoln City to the Small Business Development Center back in 2009-10. So that program is most definitely the higher ticket of the bunch, and we could put 11, maybe 12, 13, 14 participants, 15 participants now actually, if approved, through this program this year. The other side, this smaller pool of funds that I don't do a good job of spending out, because again, you're not spending for personnel or paper or copying or any other costs. You're only paying for scholarships for businesses who are investing the time and effort to take a class. And we simply, to be honest, I really don't know the answer as to why I can't fill the room to capacity. Every time someone like Cassie reports this, that, wow, Lincoln City businesses who happen to fall within the district receive these free classes and workshops. And I've mentioned this to this group before, or I'll mention it again. We consistently get, what's the hook? What's the problem? And we say, well, there is no hook. I mean, you have skin in the game. You're investing the time and effort. You need to be here when we and follow these various protocols that we have for classes. But at the end of the day, it's free, courtesy of this wonderful program that we've enjoyed at least for the past 4 years. And so at least for those first-time businesses, once I've got them, they'll come back. They'll come back for other classes that we offer. But it's very difficult. Some people think we're trying to sell them something, and we're clearly not. And there is no free lunch in this world. And in this case, it kind of is. And so that's something that we've dealt with. The timing is something that we've dealt with. And also, I don't want to plead poverty, but we don't have a huge marketing budget. You don't see full-page ads talking about the classes that are available or that are available at no cost if you happen to be located within these confines. That would be a wonderful thing. But it's not in the cards yet. Someday I may get that, but yes.
I just have a follow-up question then. And so at what time of the year do you announce that you won't be able to spend all of the funding that's been granted? What I'm thinking of is if there's another use for that money during that time, then, is something waiting in the, in the rear, waiting to move forward?
To answer my portion of that, I can tell you that I typically know by the middle of April, early May, that the spring term is pretty much booked, and I could give Allison a pretty good rundown of here's what's left, if that would be helpful.
Would that be helpful?
Well, yes and no. I mean, the money would just go back into the next year budget and be reallocated. So
Sit there anyway.
if Dave felt like there was some other purpose for SBDC to serve urban renewal-based businesses and employees, and was able to turn that around very quickly into a third program, for example, we'd have to come back to the loan committee and come back to the agency to request approval in April or May to use those funds by June 30th. So we haven't really talked about that. I suppose that's a possibility, but otherwise, I mean, the funds aren't being wasted out of the urban renewal dollar, but they're just being reallocated into other projects for the next budget year.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? These are funds that are available for businesses in the urban renewal district, and the reason they're not spent is because people don't sign up to take the classes. So I personally think it's good to have the funds there available if there is the need for the businesses to take the classes that are available.
If I could chime in on that, Chair Walkie, one of the things that I think we found is that the Small Business Management Program, the year-long program that one of the programs is we're talking about this evening, one of the reasons why we don't deal with that, there's no free lunch, what are you trying to sell me situation is that involves a lot of meetings and talking to clients and potential clients before they ever sign up. Are they going to be willing to set a work plan and hold themselves to it over the course of a year? Are they going to set objectives? Are they going to go through all the application process that takes? So they get to know us really well before our first class on September 21st. And so they don't have any question about what this program is. It's the other portion that I still believe has tremendous value. I will be doing my best to work with Jeremy and Cassie at the News Guard and other outlets to make sure that we get the message out loud and clear to Lincoln City merchants without necessarily the other issue that we dance around is if we shout too loudly, we confuse the rest of the county. I mean, certainly there are everyone who's asked me from Waldport and Newport and other places that say, gosh, am I eligible for that program? I'm like, only if you relocate. Yeah. And so that's quite clear and cut and dried if you don't meet that specific criteria. And we spent a lot of time today on that very map because we have some clients who fall right outside of the limits and they want to know, why was this drawn this way? Well, that was years ago, and we can't right that ship, but it is something we focus on to make sure that everyone who gets this is eligible, and Allison has access to every one of those names and addresses.
Madam Chair, I'll move to approve the loan program support grant request to the Small Business Development Center in the amount of $20,000 with an exemption to surpass the $10,000 program limit.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the grant in the amount requested as an exemption to the limitation of $10,000 per program. You have a roll call, please.
Ward,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Hinton,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
and Walke.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your explanation. Next item is the local program support grant language revision. Ms. Robertson, did you have explanation of this one?
Sure. So as you just heard and approved a request for these funds for the local program support grant from the Small Business Development Center, this is in response to that approval. What staff suggests is modifying the language of the program so that the community, our economic development partners, can determine what programs they are doing now or what they may be able to do to help better serve businesses that are located in the district. So the language revision that is suggested is basically on page 1 of the program information, and it adds a sentence that says, in certain circumstances, the agency may authorize a higher grant amount. For example, if the applicant has shown past success with previously dispersed program funds. Again, if we do get requests for a grant that exceed the $10,000, that would run the usual process of going before the loan or grant committee that you all have set up with 3 members, your 3 members. And then if that loan and grant committee decides to move it forward to the agency for consideration, it would go before you again. So the process would be the same, and staff would not make any determination about if if a grant request came in at any number, at any request, level of request, that would go before the loan committee, and then again, if the loan committee wanted to move it to the agency for discussion and consideration, that's what would happen.
I have a question to clarify that. Any amount up to $25,000 a year?
Yes,
Yes. Okay. Still with the $25,000
as a cap.
per
Yeah,
agency.
unless you wanted to make an exception for that. This only creates the opportunity after we talk about grants are available up to $10,000. This really is speaking directly to the $10,000 request, that for that program request, you can make an exception. If there are other exceptions that you want to consider, we can be more creative in that language as well, but it seemed like that we hadn't talked about that. So this is just really speaking directly to the request that you just approved.
From agency members?
Madam Chair, I'd make a motion to approve to the loan program support grant, the language revision so stated in the packet that allows for surpassing the $10,000 program lid.
Second.
Motion and second to add language to the local program support grant requirements. Roll call, please.
Dick Anderson,
Yes.
Deanna Hinton,
Yes.
Judy Casper,
Yes.
Susan Walke,
Yes.
Kid Ford,
Yes.
and Mayor Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Last item on our agenda tonight is the intergovernmental agreement between ODOT and the Urban Renewal Agency and the city. This is regarding construction on Southwest 101. Having a hard time finding things with this new program here. Yeah. Used to be able to click on something, now you have to click twice. Two different things. The Lincoln City Baywalk at milepost 118. Ms. Robertson, did you have a report?
Sure. This is a basic intergovernmental agreement with ODOT where the city would maintain the project after it's built because it is an ODOT right-of-way. The document refers to the city and urban renewal as the same entity. So in the agreement, it calls out the city and the agency both as agency. So even though it does say the agency will maintain the project, really they're talking about the city and the agency since it's kind of three parties. So, yeah. Sorry for that confusion.
Questions of staff? Okay. Any other questions?
Move to approve the intergovernmental agreement with ODOT and Urban Renewal and the City of Lincoln City.
Second.
Motion second to approve the intergovernmental agreement entitled sometimes paper's easier. The Cooperative Improvement Agreement, US 101 Baywalk Schooner Point Turnout Project. Roll call, please.
Hinton,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Walke,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
And Anderson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
I did have one question. This is only that area on the map on packet page 38. There's no additional sidewalk work in process, or would that be a public works project?
Do you mean outside the project area?
Yeah.
Yes, actually. So this will build a section of the Baywalk or the Head to Bay Trail, which kind of serve the same purpose, through this project section, this turnout. In front of the Bay House property, they will be responsible for any sidewalk built there in the future. And then coming more south to Southwest Jetty, Urban Renewal is in design on realigning that intersection of Jetty to Highway 101. And we'll bring you a project update on that at the next meeting, which will be, I think, late September. And so that will build sidewalk. And then also down south, which is not on the map, but between 62nd and 63rd, Public Works has designed and nearly complete on design for sidewalk to finish that section, which is in front of Roby's Furniture. And Urban Renewal will be paying for that project, but they're doing all the design and handling the interaction with ODOT and the property owner. Going north of the project area, we have budgeted and have started design on what we call the Baywalk sidewalk section, and it's basically that last section between the turnout that ODOT improved a number of years ago just south of the bridge to our soon-to-be improved turnout. And that project we started to get designed, and then we decided to wait until we had this one permitted and constructed and the Southwest Jetty realignment a little bit further along so that we can have more attention focused on the conversation with ODOT, because we just want to make sure that the sidewalk that is designed there is going to have long-term integrity. There might be some needed riprap at the shoreline and some other things that we need to really kind of get down into more detail on before we work more on that design. So basically there will be sidewalk through this section of highway except in front of the Bay House until the time that they do any improvements, and then through the ODOT improved turnout that they don't plan to do any more improvements on. So,
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Hinton?
just interested in a time frame. If everything clicks along as it should, when should this be completed? The whole strip of sidewalk?
I'm sorry, what, I understood the,
I was just curious, you know, you're laying out all of these, or speaking about each little segment of the sidewalks that'll be joined hopefully at some point.
Yes.
What's the time frame if all those get completed, when expected?
That's a great question. So basically, Urban Renewal is doing 4 parts, or paying for 4 parts. We expect that this one will be done this year, and then the Southwest Jetty realignment will be done next year. And then I'm hoping that Baywalk will be done next year, but more calendar year than fiscal year. I don't think we'll be able to finish the design and construct it by the end of this fiscal year. And then the Roby sidewalk, Public Works is working on that, and I think, will that be done this calendar year? Yeah, this calendar year. So this is really the primary, besides the D-Lake undergrounding, Cutler City is really the focus for urban renewal projects as we move into our last bond, so.
Allison, when you say this year, are you referring to calendar or fiscal year?
Yeah, some of them are calendar and some of them are fiscal. So you'll see this project happening this calendar year, along with Roby's. And then the Southwest Jetty realignment will be done by the end of this fiscal year. And then the Baywalk project, which is that last section of just sidewalk, that I'm hoping, we don't yet know for sure because, all these projects are in ODOT right-of-way, so that takes a little extra communication to make sure that everything is meeting their standards. But I'm hoping that we can have that done by the end of 2018 calendar year. But I'm making assumptions about how smoothly that design will go. And then I'm also making assumptions about how easy it will be to do any more engineering, or, it might be that project is too expensive to build if we end up needing, it depends on if ODOT will make repairs to the highway or if they want us to make repairs to the highway. So it's just going to depend on, again, how we talk with ODOT about what we need in order to make an investment and feel comfortable about it in their right-of-way. So we'll keep you posted on that one. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any agency member comments about urban renewal issues? I'll adjourn the meeting then.